Hello and welcome back to Engaging Conversations, wherever in the world you are. I'm your host, Leon Goldsman, and it's always a pleasure to have you here. As we hit episode 21, I just want to take a moment to thank each and every single one of you, our listeners. Your passion and support are what keeps us going every day, and for that, I'm truly grateful. Now, today's episode is really special for more reasons than one. Not only do we have an incredible guest, but he's also someone who has played a vital role in making conversations like this possible. A huge thank you to our valued sponsor Niaz Cannoth, Principal and Lending Specialist at Invest Intelligence, who also happens to be our guest on today's show. But here's the thing about Niaz. He's not just the name behind the business, he's the person behind the vision, the one who supports communities and the people who uplift them. He's someone worthy of respect, not just because of the ideas he stands for, but because his actions back up every word. From arriving in Australia 25 years ago to becoming a respected industry leader and community advocate, Niaz has built more than just a successful business. He's built a legacy of trust, transparency, and real social impact. His commitment to ethical investment, particularly in disability accommodation, is reshaping the industry, ensuring that success isn't just about financial returns, but also about making a difference where it matters most. Beyond finance, his dedication speaks for itself. Mentoring investors, simplifying complex NDIS frameworks, and rolling up his sleeves for social work. Leadership for Niaz isn't just about vision, it's about taking action. And that's exactly what we're discussing today. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
Hi, I'm Niaz Cannoth. I reside in Sydney. I do finances and ethical NDIS investments. I migrated in 2009, did my master's in IT in Melbourne, RMIT University, then pursued higher studies again, did my MBA at UTS. I've been living in Australia for the last 25 years. I call this my home. It's a great country to be in. It provides so much opportunity for people who migrate. And my journey has been absolutely fantastic. Initial years, it was very challenging being a student, trying to understand the cultural side of things, how I would probably integrate into the society where I live in. But even the journey was challenging. I started adopting to the new culture, new values, new lifestyle. I'm married. I have 3 beautiful kids, Zain, Zishan, and Zaria. I have a 6-year-old daughter. She has changed my life. I've been in different sectors, but for me, the first thing was to understand the Australian culture and value. And I thought, even though I did my master's in IT and MBA, I just wanted to connect with pure Australian way of life, language, everything. So I started as a customer service representative. I really chose that job because I wanted to connect with people across Australia. That gave me a good opportunity to talk to people in regional towns, across cities, engaging with them, understanding need factors. So being a customer service gave me everything I wanted, from changing my slang to being an Australian a little bit, the way most of the people around in Australia think about. And that gave me a good foundation. So when I was doing my master's, that's what I did. Once I graduated, that's when I had my entrepreneurship mind came into play. I entered the world of finance at that point of time. It's been like about 10 years. The reason why I went into finance was I saw a lot of opportunity that a finance side of things can provide to everyday people. When I myself wanted to get something like a house, I found it challenging. Every time some challenging thing presents, I actually look for a solution. So I said, right, let me get into finance and see what can be done.
So Niaz, your journey from finance to ethical investment has always been about more than just numbers. What personal experiences shaped your belief that finance should serve a greater purpose?
Finance provides a lot of freedom. However, getting a right kind of finance makes a big difference. There was so much gap in terms of consultation, what kind of finance the customers would like to get. That shaped myself to get into the world of finance. The more satisfaction thing about finance was that I was able to help the first home buyers, specifically in the last 3 to 4 years, Finance helps us to help people to navigate through different stages of life. We have clients who are astute investors. We have clients who are first-home buyers, as I mentioned before. The satisfaction you get through providing them the solution is, a good example was a first-home buyer couldn't get a house for a long time. We were able to get into the detail of it, try and find out the best possible solution, and get them to buy the first home. And not only that, we engage in providing them the right opportunity to buy houses in the right areas, which actually helps them not only move into it, but which would probably appreciate in a year's time. A good example has been, we have got a house for a client which was about $600,000. Today it's valued at $1 million in 3 years' time. That all comes through strategic buying side of things and providing them the right finance.
And there's also that sense of experience.
Yes, anyone who wants to get finance in terms of residential, which I specialize in, they really need to understand their objectives and requirements. Many brokers who are in the market are not able to define that objectives and requirements. Once we get to know the objectives and requirements, that's when we go through a proper consultation and then provide them the right solution.
And Niaz, you've been described as someone who brings together all different types of people, from politicians, investors, and community leaders to create real change. What drives you to connect people and build these bridges?
It's about bringing all elements and sectors together. What I've learned through my experience is you don't just specialize in one field to make it happen to your investors. A good example is when we started getting into NDIS property development, I identified a great gap. That is, building a great product for investors is one thing. Then I realized once that's done, there were so many gaps in the market, such as we have to work with stakeholders such as SIL, SDA providers, support coordinators, and so on and so forth. Building a great product and fulfilling that requirement for investors is one thing. Then looking after those investors in terms of further engagement, or I call it as ecosystem, building a proper ecosystem where all the stakeholders come together and making a difference is what I work towards.
Well, you certainly do that. And with that, you've been able to not only see the different obstacles that are ahead of you and other people as well, but you also see opportunities. Can you share a time when you turned a challenge into a transformative opportunity, whether in business, investment, or community development?
When I got into SDA project management development side of things, there are certain things that we need to deliver for investors. First is identifying an area where we go through all the demand analysis, which most of them do. Most of the project managers, developers get that done because data is very transparent. NDIS provides those data. Based on that, you can go develop whatever you want. The most uncomfortable thing I found doing that alone was not having the transparency on the other side. Understanding demand through data analysis is one thing, but breaking that down to a point that how that would relate into a proper investment is the other thing. So a good example is when we went to Mildura, that's in Victoria, demand for SDA participant and building a SDA investment property was quite viable. When we dug deep into it, we found that the participants who are the real stakeholders here, where we want to build everything for them, were living in dwellings which was so shabby, I couldn't believe. At that point of time, I met the former mayors of the town to have a discussion about what are the need factors in those areas, what it looks like, and then we met real participants to understand their needs. We put all those things together, and the most important thing was to bring the most valuable stakeholders, that is standard disability accommodation agencies, SIL providers into that region, do their own research on the data that has been provided by NDIA, and get to the point that is there a reason why we need to take investors into that area? That's number one, because they are the stakeholders. Can we engage SIL providers? That's the second stakeholders. SDA agency, that's the third stakeholders. The most important stakeholders is participant. We engaged all of them at the beginning of the project. We had a plan at the beginning, then we went to works.
You obviously put in a lot of attention to detail and understand the audience, the target, you get all the information so you can not only make well-informed decisions, but you can also recommend those decisions and suggestions to other people. Niaz, your work in NDIS, including the SDA and SILS, is making a tangible impact on the lives of people with disabilities. What drew you to this sector, and what do most people misunderstand about it?
There are 2 or 3 different things we can talk about here. I know NDIA and the government encourages mom and dad or astute investors to build SDA properties. That's because there are so much demand for participants to be moved out of legacy homes where they are just modified. They live in there. As I mentioned before, it's in a very shabby condition in many ways. Some of the participants are in the hospitals for many months. So I believe NDIA has identified that there is a need for it, and they encourage the mom and dad investors or astute investors, as I mentioned, to build houses. And they actually give great returns in terms of returns. I would probably say, depending on region to region, if you build a 4-bedroom house with 3 participants, 1 carer room, depending on the category, you can get $55,000 to up to $80,000, depending on the region again. That's a great income. So they encourage investors to get into that sector, and they reward for it. But reward comes with risk. This is where I want to differentiate how I approach the market altogether. Pre-COVID, I think in 2014-15, that's when all these things were introduced in terms of SDA housing, investors coming on board. Queensland were the first adopter. At that point of time, I was not project managing anything. I used to get clients. I was in finance sector, as you know. They would ask me, Niaz, can you assist in getting a great investment properties anywhere in Australia? Based on little knowledge at that point of time, I used to work with NDIS developers, and I would say, yep, I've done my basic research, and this looks good. This is the returns, and returns are very transparent. You can just go into the NDIS website, and it will give you all the details, suburb-wise, region-wise, what are the participants, what it looks like, what not. And as a developer, I can just show that to any investors and say, hey, there is a demand. I'm building a property there for X amount, and you invest this, and your investment returns is going to be 3 participants into, let's say on average $150,000 on high physical support. And investors can just bite into it and get into it. That's what happened with a couple of investors I actually referred to. The challenge was, after the completion of the dwelling, there are no participants moving in. Who would they first call? Me, not the developer, because I'm the one who said it looks good. I was not able to understand why, when so much demand through a transparent source says that you can get participant, but you can't get anyone.
And this is the problem. A lot of people don't delve deep enough or under the surface. They just see something, read it, and they just kind of take it as gospel.
Absolutely right. I don't blame the investors, because when you present something to them from the data point of view, or the demand point of view, or the housing point of view, it looks real, and it's real. And I don't blame the developers to sell something showing that, and that's what everyone would do. For me, it was a very uncomfortable position to be in. I said, no, this is something wrong there. I have to dwell more into it. That's when I really started doing my own R&D side of things. What data means to investors, what data means to participants, what data means to the other stakeholders like SIL providers, SDA, who actually leases this, and what are the cross links between all these stakeholders. In my opinion, when I concluded, everyone has to play a role. You just can't build something and say that's done. I'm done with it. The demand is there. It's not my problem. I believe project managers or developers can't do that in my term. So that's when I said, you know what, let me do an end-to-end solution because I had so many people still coming back to me and saying, can we do something? Can you show me where to invest and what is the best thing? I believe NDIS SDA investment, if done right, is the best thing you can ever get into.
So you're clearly demonstrating some responsibility and most of all integrity. This is more or less your point of difference as well than some of the others who just enter the market.
Absolutely. Again, I'll reiterate that there is nothing wrong with who does what, right? It's about building ecosystem, ethical ecosystem. Not that I will get or anyone can get 100% right, but putting a body of work. And as I mentioned before, building that ecosystem is the most important thing. And that's what we did in Mildura. That was my first project, right? What we did was we looked at data.
And you've had a few projects since then.
Yes, I do. But Mildura has been my favorite thing because that's been my first. And when you have done all this R&D, you think that you have learned everything and you can do everything you want to do. But I'll explain the challenges after that. But the good thing is, when you have created that ecosystem to bring all the stakeholders, going with the demand, especially the demand which you actually see, it's transparent. When I present something to you as an example, I show the data which is available and there is no other data we go through. But as mentioned before, you could see that, interpret and say, wow, this is great. I'm going to invest my $1 million into it. You get finance. And that could be the beginning end of it. But if you have not worked with all the stakeholders I mentioned from day one of curating this project, you will fail 80% of the time. Doesn't matter what the data says. Doesn't matter what it presents to yourself.
And so I suppose when people are going into something like this, it's always better to come in knowing what you're getting yourself into and suddenly having the right people on your team.
Absolutely. That's what I do with my investors. I actually walk them through the data. They say, oh, we have seen that. Someone else presented this. I get that. I said, there is more to it. And then we walk through the challenges they would potentially have irrespective of what they say. We explain to them what are the minimum thing they can get out of it, what is the maximum they can expect out of it. But the beauty is the ecosystem we built and how we bring the stakeholders from day one when we curate the project for a specific area.
Niaz, it's clear you've been a champion for ensuring that regional Australians don't fall through the cracks. What financial and social challenges do these communities face that often go unnoticed?
I love regional areas. Most of my projects are in regional. I think the need factor for this in regional is very, very high, right? I understand balancing the investor side of things. At the same time, I would go to a regional area where the demand for this kind of investment, building SDA property, exceeds supply. I would look at if anyone has done anything there, whatnot. I work with SIL and SDA providers in the local regional area to understand the demand factor. The social responsible side of things, I think it falls with everyone, from the local politicians to industry leaders in that area, the developers in that area, the SIL providers, SDA providers as mentioned. The social responsibilities, I identify that as the most important thing. That's the reason I always stress building an ecosystem consisting of all these key stakeholders, decision makers, enablers, developers, service providers, coming together and making a difference. And the biggest difference or the most benefit which comes out of this is to the participants. That's the participants who requires a specialized dwellings. They need to be treated with respect, just like us. We have an open home, we walk into it, we have choices. We say this house is better than that, this house is better than that. But as much as they need choice, we are the one we should drive that and give them the best of the best they can get into.
This is why people trust you, because of your integrity and transparency. How do you maintain that trust and ensure ethical standards in all your dealings?
Good question. Very good question. Transparency is the most important thing in finance, ethical investment. I always loved to be part of the community. I dedicate my Friday, half a day, every day of the week, doing some kind of social work. A good example is I was this former secretary of a school with 1,500 students. And being in that environment and working towards the education sector, it's a non-profit school, is something that I love to do. During the ravaging fire incident which took place in New South Wales, I believe 2019-20, Batemans Bay and all those region is ravaged, completely down. This is something I would like to say. At that point of time, I was going through a health crisis. I was diagnosed with rectal cancer, stage 3 to stage 4 progression. During that time, I was going through neoadjuvant therapy, which is chemo and radiation. And I just can't believe at that point of time when I was in the midst of doing the radiation, I think I was in the 5th or 6th week of doing radiation, we were able to get about 20 volunteers, women, men, children, as a part of the team from New South Wales. We went to Batemans Bay. We coordinated with local coordinators. We were coordinating with all the needy things which is required. We collected some money, but rather than shopping here in Sydney and taking everything back there, we had a list of things which is of immediate need. We went to Batemans Bay and we did the shopping there so that we can encourage the local retail.
Well, that speaks volumes about your character, helping communities, building communities, even the areas that you don't live in yourself, being where the people need you. You've obviously putting a lot of people first, and you understand people's needs.
Absolutely. You can't get, you wouldn't be able to understand 100% of the needs, but you have to start somewhere. I believe the best way to start is engaging with the local community, providing them the platform. You have to create a platform, whether it's through an association or working with an existing association or organization, being part of that organization and understanding the local needs. It's very important that you have to get up, go there, be there, and then get things done.
So I suppose that's how you got into doing what you're doing away from finance, just finance, and getting into NDIA property development. You've worked with a wide range of stakeholders, from government bodies to families seeking life-changing support. What have these experiences taught you about leadership and responsibility?
A lot. In the field I am in, leadership is essential. It can come in any form or shape, but leading from the front and providing the right framework to give the best to your investors or the stakeholders, which I explained before, is very important. And you have to be in the forefront. That may provide a lot of challenges, but understanding the subject matter, understanding the environment, understanding different stakeholders you work with, which I mentioned, understanding the ever-changing dynamics of in that industry and the stakeholders, you have to be a good leader. If you don't, you will fall through the cracks. That's what leadership means. It's about understanding the culture, local culture, the values, the requirements, the challenges, and having a plan and a vision and being transparent with the people you work with. That's what leadership means to me.
Well, what I noticed about you and your style of leadership is you lead by example. I've never seen you tell people what to do. You show them. That is the testament to your character.
Absolutely. I believe in empowering individuals. It's such a strong word, it seems like, but the empowerment comes from trust. And the trust comes from the way you engage with the people, different industry bodies, having that comfort level in the engagement, as I mentioned before. Empowering is all about leadership. If I'm working with the key stakeholders, of course, it starts from identifying them and then trusting them after you identify. And then when they're part of the ecosystem, they are the specialist in that field. I need to empower them to make decision, so that the end stakeholders, the participants and the investors, get benefit out of it.
You've certainly worked closely with politicians, community leaders, and lots of investors. What leadership qualities do you admire in others, and how have they influenced your own approach?
For me, leadership is very dynamic. You change leadership style or engagement based on the scenarios and circumstances you are in and you want to deal with. You can't take one mindset of leadership and say this would fit for all purpose. It just doesn't work. The politicians and the leaders I've worked with, the people who lead best of the best organization, non-profit organization who are community leaders, I've learned a lot. It's a need factor that gives you the best outcome from your leadership.
So what I'm noticing is, and what you're saying, is being flexible and adapting to different situations.
Absolutely. You have to. I believe in that, and I've seen that making a big difference. A good example would be my leadership when I engage with investors is different to when I show my leadership when I'm engaging with politicians or the stakeholders like SIL, SDA. There's always a common element, which, as I said, empowerment, trust, and believing in the vision. And then you frame your leadership around the vision and the execution part of it.
So many people might be hearing your name for the first time through this conversation. How would you like to be remembered by?
I want to remember me as a trustworthy person, and trust comes through transparency. I want people to remember me as a visionary, whereby I understand what we're doing together, and integrity is the most important part of it. That is working with people from different walk of life, bringing them together, and be natural, be yourself, and present things the way you see it, and explain to them, this is how I see things. Can you be part of that? Everyone would have different vision. For me, once I framework the vision, I'm very transparent about it. This is what it looks like. Let's be part of that system together. Any challenges, let's work together. Any outcomes we get out of it, let's enjoy that outcome together. And that's how I think I would love everyone to remember me as.
And so, Niaz, looking ahead, what's next for you? What legacy do you hope to leave, not just in business, but in life?
The work we do is not about me or my organization. It has such a great impact across sectors we deal with. It helps the politician to enable the vision. It helps the local industries from the employment point of view. Everywhere we go, we create jobs in the health sector, which is such critical stuff. It provides the participants home for 20 years. I can imagine a world where we have done the project where the participants not only enjoys the great environment to live in, but they are with their family seeing their kids growing up, because that's the environment they've never been in. In my opinion, I've seen where they are at this point of time. It creates engagement across different sectors. I've seen politicians admiring the projects we have done because it frees up the hospital and the local industries. For example, the SIL, the SDS in the local industry, they get to engage with the development we have done. It creates a legacy for a long period of time. What my goal in my life is to empower people and give them the best opportunity and fair chance to succeed in life.
Well, that's very, very admirable. And that is why I've seen it firsthand, why you've earned your trust and respect from people. And Niaz, I'm very grateful for all your support that you've given us and taking the time to speak with me and connecting with our audience and helping everybody else along the way. So thank you so much, Niaz.
Thanks, Leon. My pleasure to have a chat with you, and it's wonderful to be here.
And that's a wrap on another incredible episode of Engaging Conversations. What an inspiring chat with Niaz. His insights on leadership, integrity, and making a real impact really did hit home. If there's one thing to take away from today's conversation, it's that leadership isn't just about having a vision. It's about showing up, taking action, and lifting others along the way. Niaz's story is proof of what's possible when dedication, trust, and community come together. He reminds us that success isn't just about what we achieve, it's about the opportunities we create for others as well. And that idea carries through to our next episode, where I'll be sitting down with Cheryl and Beaver from Hunter Adult Financial Collaborative. We'll be talking about why giving people a go isn't just an Aussie value. It's a powerful way to help more people like Niaz succeed and in turn help others to do the same. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to be part of the conversation. Follow the show, share the episode, and tag someone who'd appreciate the insights. Every connection we make, every conversation we have, it all adds up to something bigger. A huge thank you to all of you, our listeners, our guests, our sponsors, and the amazing team behind the scenes who make the show happen. I'm your host, Leon Goldsman, and until next time, stay safe, stay inspired, and let's keep making a difference together.